Hi, this is John Johnston, Corn Nation. Setting out here after the Minnesota debacle, which is what it is, out here in the middle of nowhere, really, because I decided that it wasn't fair to my family to stay in the house and be angry and pissed off, and instead I'll come out here in nature and be angry and pissed off. And this tree behind me will probably die after I leave just because of the toxic nature of my being so close to it right now. It's a loss to Minnesota. A loss to a team that came into this game down 33 players, I think. 2 offensive linemen starters out, down to 2 tight ends, I believe it was. A couple of defensive line starters out. A defense that was one of the worst in the nation against the run. And how did we start this game? We started this game with one of those fucking sideways passes that goes backwards and isn't complete anyway. I don't understand why you start the fucking games with that play. I realize it's your offense. You want to get out in space where you can make some moves and do the big run and do the big play. Well, that ain't fucking happening, is it? And then you looked at a defense that literally, I've watched Minnesota play football this year. They could have had the nickname Civ, and Civs would have been insulted by their fucking defense this year. You could have started with a run play with Dedrick Mills right up the middle. Oh, but why run out of defense when you can run around them, right? Yeah. You know, I walked for a while before I found this spot. It's kind of windy. It's kind of cold. It's in Minnesota. I live in Minnesota. That's the other thing that kind of pisses me off. I get the feeling that PJ Fleck owns Eric Chenander. And I don't know why that is. Maybe it was because last year I stood on the sidelines with a camera and watched us get run over in the third quarter by a team that was willing to be much more physical than we were. And they ran the ball down our throats and beat the shit out of us. This year, we play zone. I'm not a football guru. I don't get paid hundreds of thousands of dollars to call plays, which is what coordinators get. I'm not head coach material. I would never, probably not I'm not material. Okay, there you go. I'm some guy that's spewing this shit out in the middle of the woods, for God's sake, on a YouTube video. Fuck me, right? Anyway, why are we playing zone? Last week we locked down 2 NFL quality receivers in David Bell and Rondale Moore from Purdue. This week we play zone most of the time without getting really any pressure on the quarterback. And maybe I get that a little bit. Tanner Morgan is a decent quarterback. He can throw the deep ball with accuracy. Wouldn't that be nice? Last week we saw Adrian Martinez, who looked poised, and he looked good. He looked confident. 18 for 20, I think his stats were. I don't remember what they were on this game. I was too pissed off, and I just walked out the house without looking at the stats, and I don't really give a fuck what Scott Frost has to say in his press conference after the game. It's probably the same shit. Great week of practice. We're only a few plays away. Bill Callahan said that line years ago. I don't even remember where it was. They have a terrible defense, and we really didn't attack their defense where it was weakest. We didn't establish a strong running game. Nebraska's offense scored 17 points against a terrible defense. And just because they won today does not make Minnesota a good team, because they're not a good football team. There were a few things in this game. Number one, we had wide receivers running wide open all over the place. Adrian couldn't hit him. And it was pretty obvious, even when he was really wanted to throw a ball to a guy, he was terrified of zipping it over their heads, which is what he did most of the game. And he'd throw one of these soft passes that wouldn't get there. So, Adrian Martinez has the skills physically. How do you correct a guy's mental part of the game? I don't know. Luke McCaffrey barely played. When he got into the game, he threw 2 passes One bounced off a receiver that should have caught the ball and turned into 7 points later for Minnesota because they got an interception. And it's like last week against Purdue, we block a punt. We start the game up 14 points. We start the game out well. And you could see, I think it really made a difference in their energy level. This week we start out with a backwards pass. We start out with an interception. We start out bad. And I just really think that this team is mentally weak. And I hate to say that because it's not something you want to say about your football team, but they don't have the toughness in them, in their heads, in their souls as a team to overcome bad things. And we talked about, Jill especially last week post-game brought up the fact that we did a good job against Purdue. We did some bad things and we overcame them. In this game we did bad things and we didn't overcome them. You get a touchdown from Martinez late in the game and it's called back on the only holding call on an offensive lineman I remember for the game. And of all the plays, that's the fucking play you call holding. And you go back and look at that play and you say, and that's what you call holding? Are you not getting laid enough? Seriously, why do you throw that flag right there? Because you're not special enough in your fucking life? A guy actually makes a good block and drives his man to the ground. You go, well, can't be that good, so it must have been holding. I'll just throw this flag. Fuck these guys. It's plays like that you kind of look at and you go, wow, maybe the Big Ten really does have it out for us. Or out for Scott Frost. I don't know. It's hard to defend that one. We had a drive late in the game. We needed to score. And we pass on first down, we pass on second down, and both balls are so far off target. And then on the third down, Adrian Martinez gets sacked. And, Bryce Benhart, buddy, if you can't fucking block a guy, hold him, because they're not calling holding. They don't call holding. Okay, they call holding against Nebraska sometimes, but they mostly don't fucking call holding against anybody. Hold the guy. If it's third down and you really have to pick up a first down, just fucking hold the guy instead of giving up the sack. Especially giving up a sack now that causes another fumble. It's 2 weeks in a row that an offensive lineman has allowed Adrian to get hit and coughed up the ball. So there's a lot of things. I want to say there's a lot of things that could be good. And there are a lot of good things. We didn't play terrible defense, but Minnesota they made the plays when they needed to. That's the thing about Minnesota. Ibrahim, I'm butchering his name. He's a good back. He's not a guy that's going to burst open. He's not Jonathan Taylor. He's not going to run for 80-yard touchdowns for you. He's going to get 5 yards of carry, though. And you saw it late in the game where he just picked his holes and made the dagger cuts in our bodies that sealed the game for Minnesota. I know that I've said in the past that this is kind of a throwaway year. Nate McHugh, who I think is a good writer, and he has good points. Don't tell him I said that. Made the point a while ago that not every game has to be a referendum on Nebraska football. I think that's true of this game. It's personally frustrating for me because I live here in Minnesota. My son goes to the University of Minnesota. They've been not too pushy or nasty about it in my house because they know how upset I am. But it's really fucking irritating losing to these guys in football. It's not that they might not be a decent team. Last year they were a decent team. It's that you walk into a game, again, where they're down 33 players. And I watched Minnesota football earlier this year. I would have told you, and my attitude toward them has been, their defense really didn't want to play football. Well, fuck me today. I was wrong. They wanted to play football more than we did because they made the plays, and we did not make the plays. So what happens from here? Remember last week we felt good? Everybody felt good. We won. It was like Christmas. And we were talking about, wow, if we beat Minnesota, which, we all thought was a given, and we win that game, and then we win the next game over that against a deadly crossover or whatever it's called, Death Saturday or Big Game Saturday or whatever the fuck it is. We could be 500 and go to a bowl game, and that'd change the whole attitude about this season. Well, we're back in the shit now. You know, you're looking at a team that's 2-5 during a year that really doesn't count for much. One game changed the attitude and the course of the year, the conversation. Yeah, probably could, because you're kind of looking at this now and you're going, what's going to change about this? Because we are playing teams fairly close. We lost to Iowa by 6. We lost to Minnesota by, a touchdown. So we're competitive. That's how bad we are. We're competitive. She's nice. That's where we are. I don't think we're millions of miles away from being a decent team. And when I say decent, I mean a bowl team, an average team. Maybe somewhere in here we're going to have to find a fucking guy that can play quarterback consistently the way Scott Frost wants him to for this offense to actually be the scoring explosion that I think it could be. I do think that Scott Frost is, he's not a fool when he says the Big Ten needs to adjust to us, because I do think that once you get the right players in place, that you can make that happen. Do years like this hurt? I think they do, but at the same time, Scott Frost isn't going anywhere. Or is any of his assistant coaches going anywhere? I doubt it. Maybe of their own volition, they'll say, I'm going to go get another job somewhere, but somebody has to be a sacrificial lamb, right? For those of us who look at Nebraska football as if it fills our ego. I don't know what else to say. There's a terrible loss to a shitty team. A shitty undermanned team. I started out that way, and I think that point needs to be made. Minnesota played without 33 players. Seriously down at some positions, and they still played football and they still won. Somewhere Nebraska has to find those guts that we said were there but aren't clearly there. They better find those fucking guts inside them if they expect to win any games, and if we expect a Scott Frost to be successful as our coach. I don't know if I have much more to say beyond that, because I don't know if there is. They beat us in the lines again, and they're going to keep beating us in the lines until we just get better at offensive and defensive line, until we can run Dedrick Mills up the middle on every fucking play and gain 5 yards. Even though that will never happen under this offense because they have too many gadgets and too many toys to play with, so it's like they don't even want to do what works. Because I didn't get the whole first quarter. I didn't get why we are working against a team that clearly has problems in the middle of their line where they actually, give up runs, and we're trying to go out and wide in space. We don't run north and south. We run wide. Xavier Betts got 1 touch, I think, in this game. Yeah. They had some plays set up. They had some screenplays set up where the offensive line hit nobody. I was a shitty high school football player. I played for a little tiny town in western Nebraska, and the only reason I played was because we didn't have a very big population, and we played 11-man football. But I do remember I played as an offensive guard, and the only thing I remember really most about playing offensive guard is your coach said, if you don't know who to block on any play, hit somebody. Our offensive linemen run out in space and they look around and they watch a guy. I get, it's really hard as an offensive lineman to move to the ability to block a lot of linebackers or to block a lot of certainly defensive backs. But Jesus, hit somebody. Why don't you stand there and watch your fucking guy get tackled and then look at him while he's on the ground going, "Bud, what you doing there? Damn." Yes, that's my imitation of our fucking offensive line right now. I know that's rude, and they're just kids. Fuck that shit. We make them heroes. They can take the shit too. That's it. I'm done. It's cold out here. I hope you're all okay. I know that things this year are actually getting worse, much worse than they were before, and it doesn't look like that's going to let up for months. There was a story there earlier today about a Florida player that collapsed on the court and was taken to the hospital, and I'm hoping that that he's okay, but I think it's an important story to pay attention to because it may have repercussions on all of college sports. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your families. Thank you for putting up with me. Go Big Red. Merry Christmas.